Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to a very special kind of emergency type episode we got going on here today.
Bruh.
Hope you guys are hanging out here. Hope you guys are having, ready to have some fun and enjoy today's special episode, in which we're going to be talking about, a power outage. That's basically what happened last week. To the channel, to my house, and we're going to get in. I figured, what? Why not go on ahead and use this as a perfect opportunity to go on ahead and let you guys know what life is like out here when things like that happen. Because a lot of you guys, believe it or not, you guys ask me all the time, why, how is it, the situation with like the power, with electricity, do we have power outages, brownouts, what about the water situation? In some places, there's no water, some places we run out of water, and it's a whole conversation. So, this is a main topic of discussion because a lot of you guys do your homework, and you guys know fully well that, Mexico in some parts, they look amazing just like here, and very rarely are you going to have any problems with the grid. Right now we're walking in Guadalajara. This is on the neighborhood of Zapopan. This is by Plaza Patria. For anyone out there that cares, where we are walking today. This is from our trip when we took it last year, and I grabbed all this amazing footage to share with you guys when we do our videos. But anywho's, when you're living in a place like this, it's a little bit more rare, to see any kind of problems to the grid, even though they happen, of course. But when you're living in a more rural area, or you're even living in a place like Merida, which is a very, it's a developing city. It's a city that's growing, and it has its growing pains, and therefore it has its problems when it comes to the grid. And so we'll talk about that in a second. And again, in other places, for example, let's say Oaxaca, there's been overpopulation. There's been, there's a lot of scarcity when it comes to like the water situation. And so out there, a lot of people basically, their main resource that they don't, they're running out of is water. So in some parts of Mexico, water is a main issue. Like in Guadalajara, they were having severe droughts as well, right here. So, water is an issue in some places. Power is an issue in some other places. Sometimes it's both. But the question is, does this really affect you? Is it, going to be affecting you when you move out here? Is it something that is like a major problem where it happens all the time? Well, short answer is no. Again, I've been live streaming, I've been on YouTube. I've been doing this, career, basically since I moved out here. So it's been going on 7 years. And I very rarely had any kind of problem to the point where it has truly interrupted what I do for a living. So yes, from time to time, basically, by the way, side note, I know a lot of you guys are semi paying attention to what's going on in the world right now, but how funny was it that basically I had no power on Thursday when I was supposed to go live, and obviously I was trying to take care of that and trying to fix that issue, and I was more preoccupied with that, and I didn't even know that the stock market crashed, and all the things that ensued after, well, basically since Thursday all the way through now. In fact, we'll be talking about it more on my other channel later today. We're going to do another live stream over there. But yeah, long story short, what happened was that out here in this region, as the city has been growing, it has been putting a damper, has been stretching the grid too thin. And so, unfortunately, in some places, some areas, there are power outages and there are power issues. Like I know in some parts of the city, up in the northern parts of Merida, there are more issues with power because those are some of the newer constructions. Out where I live, not so much, because I live closer to El Centro, I live close to a hospital, I live closer to the mall, all these big pieces of infrastructure that need to be powered on all the time. What actually happened to my house in particular, with my bad luck, with our bad luck living here, is that our house is kind of like on a weird end of the street. And so basically we're on the short end of the stick when it comes to delivery of water through the pipes, the water from the city, and when it comes to electricity. And so we've already had this issue, in the past, but it's never been this bad. In fact, we were basically without power since Thursday. And I'm still kind of without power, I'm like semi-powered. In fact, right now and through the weekend, because I was able to work through the weekend. But like, for example, on Sunday, when I drop my normal videos, when I upload my regular videos, I had no power. We had zero power all Sunday until like 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon when we finally got power restored. So anyways, but again, just my house. My neighbors are all fine. Everybody is fine. Even though there are parts of the city that are having issues, we're the only area, we're the only house in the whole neighborhood that's been having issues. So since right now, the whole city is having its issues, because again, there's so much growth and more demand on the grid, and they can't build the grid fast enough. The people moving here and demanding more energy is growing faster than they can actually build more power stations and upgrade the grid and stuff like that. That again, it causes issues. So right now, and we're probably, we've been thinking very seriously of having to move here. Not leave Merida. Just we got to leave this house. We got to move to another part of the city, probably, or another house in the neighborhood. But we got to find another home, because right now, the only way that I've been able to get online has been because a friend of ours let me borrow a generator, a solar power generator, and thank goodness for that. So I got that running, basically far away from here, but because, it's also powering the fridge and things like that. But long story short, yeah, we've been having to deal with that, where in order for me to plug in my modem and, plug in my computer for me to live stream and, come out here and hang out with you guys, I have to use another power source. Because the power issues that we were having, on Sunday we had no power, but like on Thursday, and Friday, for example, what would happen with the power is that it would turn on, and then turn off, and then turn on, and then turn off. All right, things like that. And so obviously, there's no way that I'm going to be able, I would be able to live stream or anything like that until, again, eventually, by Saturday I got the bright idea, my friend. I was telling him about the situation, and he knew another friend that had the generator, and that's it. You know what I mean? But he had the bright idea, not me. He had the bright idea to get the generator out here and use it. Now, right now, today, and yesterday, we've had power for a good portion of the day, but it goes on and off. And so today, I'm plugged into the generator, even though we have power in the house, because, I could. By the way, if you see the lights blinking, all of a sudden, you'll know that we lost power. All right, so that's kind of like an issue I'm dealing with, and it kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie. It's on this channel, I like to share with you guys the good, the bad, the ugly. So this is the bad and the ugly. And some people out there that have moved to Merida, they can let you know that they've had more power issues than me. I've actually been pretty lucky out here. But not really. How about this? The neighborhood's lucky, my house not so much. But other people, they live in other neighborhoods where maybe not so lucky. Now, again, this is not a major common problem that happens forever. You know what I mean? It's just right now. How about this? A few weeks ago, there was a major concert, that they were having at the, in the north of Merida, in the north of the city. Again, they have a giant concert venue, okay? Just like you would back home. Like imagine the Staples Center, like the basketball court place where they also have like an auditorium, whatever. Okay, anyways, the place lost power because the whole area up there lost power. And so because they lost power, they had to cancel the concert. And so just things like that. So, the reality is that, we have this issue more often than not around the time when, spring and summer are starting to hit, because again, the demand on the grid is even higher than normal. And simply because, the fact is that it gets hot. And since it gets hot, more people are asking for power so they can, turn on their air conditioners. So, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, you make do. This is all part of the things that I'm always talking about when it comes to, moving to another country or living in Mexico. For some people, dealing with an issue like this, not that big of a problem. It really wasn't. Again, for me, it literally affected my job. Remember, I lost power on Thursday, which is when I typically go live. So it was affecting me, where I couldn't make a video. I couldn't do what I do. And, but yet, it's not as stressful as if something like this were to happen, living another lifestyle or even living in the USA, which it happens. Don't tell me it doesn't. Of course it does. In the USA, you'll lose power, you'll lose internet, you'll lose, things like that. And there's really not much you can do, same as here. And because, by the way, we've been in contact with the power company and all this stuff, but, it's to the point where we know fully well that, they're not going to do anything because we're just one house in the neighborhood. Again, if the whole neighborhood was without power, 100%, the power company would have already been out here to fix the problem. But since it's one house, basically they're like, hey, just hang in there, it'll fix itself. And so what are we gonna do? But as you know what I mean, that's no way. Bruh. That's no way to live, especially if you like, for me, for example, I live from my my online job. My online job is that I do YouTube videos and I go online and stuff like that. So if I don't have consistent electricity to my house, to my business, well, then I can't make I can't edit videos, I can't produce live streams, I can't do anything, and I'm kind of like just here twiddling my thumbs. Now again, thank goodness, to my really good friend out there. He wants to remain anonymous, but shout out to them for letting me borrow the generator. Again, solar power generator. Good thing that even today, today was really cloudy. We woke up with 70-degree weather, which is like a huge cold front. 70 degrees in literally mid-April is unheard of. So we're having like a not global warming. We're having a global cooling, I guess. I don't know what's going on, but very rare, very unusual. But 70 degrees for us is like, I don't know, you waking up to like 20 degrees or 30 degrees. Because just a week ago, in fact, when we lost power on Thursday, all the way through the weekend, we were hitting 100 degrees every day. So we went from 100 degrees all the way to 70 degrees overnight. Literally overnight, because it started to cool down yesterday and we woke up with 70-degree weather, which was pretty interesting. So right now, thank goodness for that. I don't have to have any power running. I got the windows open and everything is hunky-dory here. And again, I'm able to power the stream without any kind of problems out here. And I'm not sweating to the oldies, because I was thinking to myself yesterday, oh my God, when I do the live stream today, it's going to be horrible. I'm probably going to be sweating because I cannot have the air conditioner on or anything. But thank heavens. I guess the gods, had a little mercy on me and they spared me today. and they dropped the weather just in time for me to do the live stream here and hang out with you guys. And again, that's another savior, because it was pretty terrible being in 100-degree weather with no power. Need to power the fans. Again, thank God that we had the generator and we were at least able to plug in a few fans, but no bueno. But yeah, long story short, you know what I mean? So at least for us, our situation, we've been dealing with this issue on and off, for a few years now, since we've kind of like been in this house. And so, at this point, when we started having the issue again, on Thursday, and this time it was a long issue, basically we're still dealing with it right now. We were like, oh man, that's it. Forget about it. We have to really consider moving out of this house. We just have to find another house. And so right now we're kind of like in the middle of all of that. So just FYI, all right? So, again, I don't plan on doing any less content. You know me, all right? So I'm going to be making the same amount of videos. In fact, I'm probably most likely going to be dropping 100% videos now on Tuesdays, Sundays, and Thursdays. So basically on Sunday, we're going to drop, again, I upload a video. On Thursdays, we go live, all right? And then on Tuesdays, we're going to do a variation. where most of the time I'm going to be uploading a video, but sometimes I'll be going live. So just FYI. All right, just depending on the day. Most of the time, like I would say like 80% of the time I'll be, uploading a video instead of going live. And I think going live once a week is plenty. In fact, some people might say even too much. So I definitely don't want to oversaturate that. But yeah, today's live stream was a bit of, kind of like out of the blue in a sense, because we were supposed to have a live stream on Thursday. All right. And because of the power outage throughout the weekend, I couldn't go live. And again, remember, the original video that I was going to do on Thursday was talking about the tariffs, the Trump tariffs and how that was affecting Mexico. And eventually, I thought to myself, well, I'll go live on Friday. But again, I still didn't have a power solution by then. And so, but by then we already figured out that Mexico wasn't affected at all. And here we are Tuesday, and I'm like, all right, it's not really an issue to talk about. We'll talk about it for a second. But, I figured, at this point, it's kind of like a moot point. And why is that? Well, just a quick little plug here. But again, I know you guys know, I have another channel. And if you don't know, well, now you know. I have another channel. So please, if you guys like the content that I do on this channel, if you guys like hanging out with me on my live streams, if you guys want to hear my real thoughts about what's really going on, and maybe even hear some of my life stories and things like that, get a little bit more personal with me, go down a little deeper down the rabbit hole with me. Anyways, come and hang out on my other channel, Jose Unleashed. Anyways, on what was I gonna say? Hold on a second. There you go. Anyways, on this channel, well, we're gonna be talking about this. And so, by the way, the thumbnail might change. It was originally all red. Now it's a little red and green. Might change back to red by the time we go live in a little bit. Anyways, but every time I go live here, I go live over there right after. So we're gonna go live over there in about, I don't know, an hour and a half or something like that. So once we're done here. So again, if you guys want to know more about all that, because, that's something I wanted to talk about last week, but I couldn't. And now, well, all these days have passed and it seems to have gotten worse. And anyway, so if you guys want to hear more about that, go check it out. And if you guys like this content, you guys want to help me out, you guys, want to do something nice for me, for Jose, you can send me $5, like Medi Siru. Oh man, I know I butchered that name. I apologize. But anyway, shout out to you. Thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Muchas gracias. That's gonna go to the moving fund. Bruh. No, but yeah, for sure. Thank you. Again, you can do something nice like that, or again, if you got nothing to give except your love, please consider going to leave a like if you like that, but go to my other channel and go on ahead and subscribe over there. We're almost at 1,000. I'm trying to get to 1,000. That's like a main thing there, so we can get fully monetized. All right, but please, go over there, give me a subscribe, and maybe even go check out the live stream later. All right, where we're gonna go really in depth, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So all right, let's see, 1 second. There we go, back to the walk. So, what was this? Okay, so yeah, so we're going to talk about that real quick here. We're going to go on and focus on, what happened with the power outage here. So the reality is that, when you are considering moving to Mexico, when you're moving to wherever your location you're moving to, these are questions that you need to ask. Because believe it or not, again, Mexico is awesome and it's amazing. And again, if you're going to move to a neighborhood like this, which is probably going to be a little pricey on the pricier end, over there in Guadalajara, you're probably most likely not going to really have to worry about the grid, okay, at all. You don't got to worry about power, water, none of that stuff. You'll be fine. But if you're moving to other parts of Mexico, these are things that you're probably most likely going to have to heavily consider. Now, again, I know people... Again, in this city, we have the only real issue that we've had more than anything else are power issues and strain on the grid, meaning that periodically we got moments where we'll have situations like this, where a house or a neighborhood is affected by the power. Again, power outages, things like that. A lot of times it's on the outskirts of the city, meaning the newer constructions, the newer areas. Sometimes we have water issues, but more of flooding issues, not running out of water, but more of a flooding issues and things like that. So the reality is that, these are issues that you have to kind of like consider when you're moving out here. So if you're moving, for example, the neighborhood that I live in, thank you. Look at that, the delivery of water. Thank you to my beautiful wife. She realized I forgot my to quench my thirst. I was dying over here. All right. So that's something you have to really consider. And so, like, for example, I remember I did this video not too long ago. I think, it's almost been a year now, with Ed and Betty, where they, they built a home here. They rebuilt a new home. And I did a video where I interviewed them, showed you the house, did the little tour, did all that stuff. But anyways, in their neighborhood, they start to have power issues as well. And again, just because of the growing pains, which again, this will all get fixed, because they're building all these giant power stations all over the place. But like as I was saying, is that like what they had to do is that they had to retrofit their house, okay, and to have again the solar generator situation, kind of thing, in order for them to, whenever they had a power issue, they could just kind of flip on, the solar generator situation, and then have any power issues, they had uninterrupted power. And so like for me, that's why I'm connected to the solar generator now, because I don't know, right now at any moment, like I said, the power can interrupt, and just having a little flicker, or just a little, like that is plenty enough to, maybe even restart the computer or restart the modem. And then that's remember, I'm live streaming, so I can't have that. So that's why I'm connected to it. But yeah, it's issues like that you have to like heavily consider when you're moving out here, because for a lot of people, there's a lot of benefits that come from living out here in Mexico. And for me, the benefits, they still far outweigh, the negatives. In fact, what did me and Christian do? Through the weekend. Again, no power, or not any kind of power that we could rely on. Okay, so what did we do? And it was hot. So what did we do? Nothing. We just hung out. Basically, I had just ordered a inflatable pool. We blew up the last one. Anyways, from Amazon. And so basically, guess what? Guess what delivery came in on Thursday? The inflatable pool. So we got the pool. We inflated it. We already had the supplies, to turn on the grill. We turned on the grill. We went to we walked over to the little corner store, the liquor store, the beer store, whatever. We bought a 6-pack and we made an afternoon of it. That's it. And we kind of did something similar throughout the weekend, and that's it. We just had a great weekend. Now, on Saturday I did have to work. That's by that time I got the generator. I had to plug in, and I had to, go to work. And I did some work on Saturday and Sunday, and that's it. But yesterday, just back to my regular routine, and no big deal. It is what it is. It kind of sucks. And so for a lot of people in the audience, they might think just like me. It's just a minor inconvenience. It's really not that big of a deal. But for other people in the audience, they could not even consider living without power or being in a power struggle like this. Because throughout these days, again, I had basically no power, or again, inconsistent power, meaning that the only thing I could barely do with the house is that I can maybe have a few of the fans on, meaning that they would turn on and off, and then a few lights, depending on the time of day. Usually during the day, no lights, because it was just the flickering would get annoying. But we made do. Well, why? Why do we make do? Well, because we kind of already live like that. Christians always like turning off all the lights. I'm the one that needs more lights because, I'm a little more blind, I guess. And then when it comes to the fans, that was the only inconvenience, is the fact that we didn't have, full fan action. But we don't have the air conditioner on throughout the day. We don't have that. That's not like an issue. In fact, again, since we only lost power from 9 in the morning till 9 at night, so basically a 12-hour period. What we did is that we were just thankful that we at least had power at nighttime, so we can turn on a few lights and turn on the air conditioner, because again, 100-degree heat. Nighttime was probably like 80 degrees, 85, whatever, hot. You need air conditioning. So we at least had the air conditioner on. And, we wake up early. I'm up already by 7 in the morning or whatever. So whatever. You know what I mean? It wasn't a big deal. So we were at least were able to do that. And, it was, a little rough, few days. It's been kind of rough. It's still a little rough right now, but it's not the end of the world. But I know for a fact, I just know people out there, again, people in my family, people that are friends of mine, they could not even live a few hours without power, let alone days. Without power or anything like that. Yeah, sorry, my throat's going a little dry. I started the show a little dry. It's because of the weather change, Art H says, I hope that I have surge protectors for my electronics. I do. I actually have them. And so the reality is that like a lot of times what happens is like, again, the power goes off. So when the power goes off, I just unplug. If the power goes off and I'm here by my computer, boop, I just unplug the surge protector and that's it. And then, I don't plug it back in, and make sure to turn everything off. But I don't plug anything in until I know that we got steady power. But, like right now, I'm not even taking that risk. Like I said, I'm just connected to the generator. But yeah, when it comes to other things, so like the first couple days, it was a little rough when it came to like the refrigerator, because you realize, oh my God, I gotta have the refrigerator running all the time and a modem. So it was rough because we were, we didn't have a modem. Okay, so we were just on, using our data, so it was like whatever, right? It kind of was sucky for a bit. But then on top of that, the refrigerator, it was just like, my gosh, I don't want to have the refrigerator off for this long amount of time. So now, again, mainly the generator was, to power, the refrigerator, the modem, a fan, one of those couple plug-in fan, and then the computer, for when I needed to do some work, and that's it. So, but yeah, that was one of the things. Joseph says, "What is a power company called?" CFE, so Comisión Federal de Energía. So CFE, and so CFE is for the whole country, and they are run by the government. It's funny because like, I'm all about capitalism. I'm not a big government dude. But in the USA, we have private entities running the power companies. And, it's funny because Christians are like, oh man, the power company sucks here. I'm sure in the US is better. I'm like, no, in the US, it's Montgomery Burns, that runs the power plant, so it's like, it's not any better per se. So it is what it is. But anyway, shout out to everyone out there. I see a bunch of you guys were commenting in the chat. Sorry if I missed you. I was on my thing here. But yeah, so what a lot of people do, like for example, remember, I'm more of a lower income type of person. So what happens is that during moments like this, I suffer a little bit more because I don't really have a solution. But a lot of other people out there, maybe a lot of you guys out there in the audience, you guys will not have a problem because, well, you got solar panels, or you probably have a solar generator or a regular generator, or you have other ways in order to mitigate this, and you really won't have that much of a problem. But, for me, I can't afford any of that stuff. I had to make do the best way that I could. And again, it was totally fine because, I just thinking to myself, living in the USA and how things are over there, again, just being without power for multiple days or water for multiple days, that is such a pain in the butt. It is such a inconvenience because it's like, how you feel at least is that, you're in the USA and you're paying high prices for everything, taxed for everything, so right, okay, and so you're thinking to yourself, well, okay, I'm paying for all this, so the grid cannot fail. On top of that, you're working 88,000 hours a day, just to pay those bills, to pay for that first world lifestyle and comfort. And so all of a sudden you got no power or you got no water. It is a ginormous inconvenience because it's like, hey, the hell, man. What am I, sacrificing all this for? What am I living like this for? What am I, putting all this effort in this for if I don't even have water or electricity? I'm living like in a third world country, so it's, it's a little bit harder pill to swallow per se, but, when you're living out here and things like that happen, it's more like, well, all right, I guess, perfect excuse to, so for example, what did I do with all this extra time on my hands? Believe it or not, I actually had to, I have my office, huge mess. So I went on ahead and I cleaned out my office. All right, that's it. You know what I mean? I organized my office, something that was long overdue, and I just been too busy, too busy to clean out my office. So I cleaned out my office. Another thing I did is I had to do a lot of yard work, which again, I was avoiding because, it's yard work, right? Am I right? Anyways, but long story short, I did the yard work, and I could go on and on. So basically, I did all these things, all these chores, all these, things that I had to do already. And so I got all that done. And then when we had extra time, like I said, we were in the pool, we went for a bike ride, we went to the park, we actually, we needed reasons to get out of the house. So we were, at the park a lot, especially at nighttime. We had multiple date nights that weekend. It is what it is. It's not, the end of the world. But we're in the USA, or Canada, or just the first world, I feel like it would be such a major pain in the butt. So, Art H says, I've read that solar is way cheaper in Mexico. Yes, solar is a lot cheaper to buy, to install, all that stuff. Because again, since since Mexico can trade, freely with other countries, they don't have all these politics getting in the way. They could just basically outsource solar panels and anything else from anywhere, without any kind of problem. And so a lot of people, they'll get their solar panels straight from China, so they're very inexpensive. And then to install them and to get all that done, very inexpensive as well. In fact, the only pain in the butt is once you install everything is getting it all connected to the CFE grid. Because how it works is that once you got your solar panels on, basically you're connected to the grid, and any extra power that you have that you're not storing in your batteries, you can simply sell back to the power company. So, yeah. Do you have the CFC blessing to install solar in Mexico? Yeah, exactly. I already explained that. Yeah. So, but no. Long story short, it's not a big deal. Like I said, you install your solar panels and then you call CFE so they can connect you so that you can get paid. That's it, really. But then what was I gonna say? And then you can have your batteries and all that stuff. And then again, if you got power outage, you don't gotta worry because you got your batteries. So that's the thing. In the USA, I know that again, places like Arizona, Florida, many places all over the place, that you would think that solar would be perfect because it'd be very easy to basically make make energy from, because the sun is out all the time. And yet they make it almost impossible for you to get solar and install solar and all that stuff in the USA. I'm guessing it's still the same from what you're saying, Art. But it's not like that here in Mexico at all. Like I said, it's just a pain in the butt to get anything done with the power company because, like I said, I'm having issues, whatever. It is what it is. But not, they don't care. In fact, they prefer it. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, really great. You want to produce power? You want to help us produce power? Great. Because, again, as you can see, we're having problems producing enough power for everybody. So if you want to help, that'd be great. Be more than happy to help, So, but long story short, John C says, my friend in Merida told me she lost power the other night and it was too hot to sleep. She moved to her hammock because the bed was too hot. Yes. So now you know why most of the Mexicans living in this region, most Yucatecans, they sleep in hammocks. Because obviously, a lot of them don't have air conditioner or don't use air conditioner a lot. And so therefore, this is the coolest way to sleep, meaning, the way that, because you're sleeping in the hammock, so the air's, breezing all around you and circulating and all that stuff. But long story short, at least for us, again, that was a thing too. It's like when we lost power, all these power issues that we've had these days. Again, we'll knock on wood. We've been thanking God, thanking Jeebus out there that it's only been a problem during the day. It's a lot easier to deal with the heat during the day. You can literally hose yourself down. I mean, come on. It's a lot easier to deal with the heat during the day than at nighttime trying to sleep. So again, as long as we had power at nighttime, just enough to have the AC on to get to sleep, man, that was a blessing. We're not complaining. We were happy. I mean, obviously we're upset, and especially since we are the only house having these issues. But it's fine. At the end of the day, we had to move anyway. So it's not, it's not something that, we're, how do I say, it's too upset about. It's more like, hey, this is just a sign from the gods. It's just another sign from the heavens that we gotta, get out of here. Look, even Gizmo agrees. Even Gizmo agrees out there. He's, Gizmo, hey. Hold on a second. All right, we're back. Sorry about that. A little iguana action. Gizmo loves his iguanas. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's just we have to, this is how life works. So it's not when you're ready; it's when it happens. So that's why you always got to be ready. So we were already ready. Kind of, already there. That we had to move. We knew we had to move. So now with the power issues, it's like, all right, well, now. It's now or never. What are we going to do? You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's not in our hands anymore. Because at least for me, remember, we can live, basically without that much power per se. So we can make do. But the reality is that, like, at least, for me, for what I do for a living, I need power. I need the computer. I need the internet. It's just, it is what it is. And so, if I was just selling hamburgers, I'm good. I just need some charcoal, some wood, some gas, we're good to go. So, yeah, exactly, Art Age. All you need is a cold beer. That's it. So anywho's, so yeah, I mean, that was the issue we were having. And then, like I said, we're the double whammy is now we're having water issues. Now, what happens with the water issues out here, again, in the Yucatan, we don't have drought. We're not running out of water. We got plenty of water, underwater aquifers. Okay, so we got plenty of water. We got a power water company, all that stuff. But what's happening is, again, going back to the stress on the grid. Remember, this was a very old city that all of a sudden has seen a giant boom in the recent decade, in recent years. And so the grid has not been able to keep up with it. And so in some areas, basically the drainage system is not up to par. But the reality is that, like, what the main issue is that the water pressure is not enough. So what happens is that if all of a sudden there's a lot of entities, for example, my house, right now there's a lot of entities around me using water. So there's not enough water pressure to get to my one house. And so now all of a sudden I got no water. Now I do have water technically at the front of the house. I can open up the main pipe. I got water, no problem. But there's not enough pressure for the water to get from the front of the house all the way to the back of the house, which is where basically the water pump is to put the water to the rest of the house. So what happens is that all of a sudden I got no water. But what do? Again, do I panic? Do I get upset? Do I go crazy? No. I have a hose already long enough, because, you learn to deal with these things. And that's it. I just hook it up all the way to the front. And then, through magic, my Cuban magic, whatever, I make, the water flow. And we got water. We're good to go. And then, yay, before you know it, we got water and we're fine. So it is what it is. And so, again, so a lot of people ask me things like, about, Jose, you must be living in a dump, because if you say you pay only $300 in rent, it's like, well, I don't necessarily live in a dump. It's not, the best house. It's not, a new construction by any stretch of the imagination. But, it's an older house. It's a nice house. It's a comfortable house. It has its issues. But that's what you get when you're paying, a certain price. Now, again, it's only because it's a big house and I'm paying very little. Okay. If this house, had better plumbing, better electricity, didn't have any issues with, the power company, the water company, all these things like, and other factors, maybe a newer construction. Well, then this house would probably be, a lot more in rent. And I would be paying a lot more than what I pay now. In fact, That's one of the decisions we finally made. We're like, okay, we have to upgrade a little bit. As much as it pains us to pay more, we have to upgrade a little bit, and we have to pay a little bit more so we can get a little bit better house. So we're not having these issues, or these issues are a lot less. But that's it. But these are the things that you have to consider. So what happens is that when a lot of Americans or Canadians move to Mexico, and they want to live exactly how they lived in the USA, meaning no interruptions to power, to the water, a nice fancy new construction, all these things, the newer car, live in a nicer neighborhood, no trash in the street, being able to go to the fancy grocery store. That's going to cost you money. In fact, it's going to cost you so much money that you're going to be spending very similar to what you're spending in the USA. And you have to learn a new language and a new culture and a new everything. And for a lot of people, they're like, man, cash me out. I'm out. I'm out of here. Okay? But if all of a sudden, you want to embrace a brand new culture, you want to learn Spanish, or you already know Spanish, you're looking for a more laid back lifestyle, you're more than happy to live frugally like me, meaning that, hey, you're having water issues, it's all right. You kind of connect the hose to the thing to the top, you got water. You got no power, no problem. You figure out a way to get power. Look, one of the things that I was going to do is I was just going to basically ask a neighbor, hey, can I connect to your house and, pay you whatever. But like I said, my friend came to the rescue and he said, hey, I got like a solar generator. Okay, I'm like, all right, great, perfect. I don't need much more. And that's it. And so, and we make do. We're not here, upset and depressed and mad. And no, Christian's out there, she's making dinner, she's doing her thing. The weather's nice today. Again, everything's great. We don't have to worry. Yesterday, the weather was bad. I was doing the cooking. I was doing Gizmo's meal prep for the week. Like I said, on Saturday and Sunday, it was really bad when it came to the weather. It was like 100 degrees outside, but it's all right. We were in the pool. We went to the park. It was nice. Again, it was nice and breezy. So when we went to the park in the afternoon at nighttime, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful evening. No problems whatsoever. But it's because of the mindset and because of, just like how you live life out here. It's not that big of a deal. Look, and we know people, okay, because we know other Mexicans, okay, that live out here and they live a regular life. Because I get this a lot too, okay. I'll get this from a Mexican living out here. Not everybody. Remember, very, very few. We've talked about it on the channel, okay? But anyways, they're out there. They're Mexican Karens, I guess. Anyways, they'll be like, oh, yeah, you say that's so easy. But, what about a Mexican that has to work all the time and has to this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. I already mentioned that, like if I had to deal with something like this in the USA, a lot more uncomfortable. In fact, funny you mentioned that because Christian's cousin, her friends, people that we know, Mexicans that we know, obviously, they have also been dealing with their own power issues. Not as bad as us, but again, not this time around, but in other times they have. But long story short, same thing. They have the same mentality. They just make do with it, and that's it. It's really not that big of a problem. They're not thinking, oh my God, I got to go and rent a hotel because I cannot be uncomfortable for 3 days straight. It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean you can't live uncomfortable for 3 days straight? I know it sucks, but I mean, really? So it's just like that kind of mentality. So, right now when we were dealing with all these issues and I'm out here just, acting like a Mexican in a sense of like, we're, figuring it out and creating solutions. My Mexican wife is, right there next to me, offering to help and helping and the whole thing. That's it. She's not complaining. She's not, in fact, if anyone's complaining, if anyone's having more of a rougher issue with the situation is me, okay? Especially, look, Thursday was fine. Friday, no big deal. But by the time Saturday rolled around and we still had no power, that's when I was starting to get pissed, okay? And it was only because I had to work. It was just like, hey, I got to pay the bills. I got to make sure I got a video for Sunday. And so that was the only thing I was kind of like upset about and whatever. But at the end of the day, we made it happen. You know what I mean? Like I said, I already had 2 solutions. And thank God that my friend came in with the generator, which was the better solution. But that's it. Again, a solar power generator. Because I had another friend that had a regular generator. And I was like, oh, man. You know what I mean? When he explained how that was going to, never mind. Forget it. Anyways. Oh, Pochita says, shout out to you, by the way, Pochita. welcome. Hi, how's it going? She says, in Texas, we lose power every so often. The hot Texas heat is so unbearable that the Texas power grid can't handle the demand for power. Okay, there you go. So if you're coming from Texas, you got no problem, dealing with this, with what happens out here. But again, out here, it gets better, though. It is getting better because they're actively building and constructing, like literally new giant power stations. And, they're constantly upgrading the transformers and the lines and stuff like that. But, they just can't keep up with the demand because as more people move here, they're moving from other parts of Mexico as well, but they also want to live nice and comfortable. So it's everybody. You know what I mean? It's not, I know sometimes a lot of you guys think out there, oh, you guys, Jose, you pick on Americans and Canadians. No, listen, man, there's plenty of Mexicans out there that cannot live without their air conditioner, that cannot live, they live a fancy lifestyle as well. This is why I walk through neighborhoods like this and I show you things, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's like, listen, man, there's some fancy mother effers out here too, okay? Don't be getting it twisted that everybody is out there on the hammock, drinking a beer, chilling. Okay, no, that's not, most Mexicans are. Yes, a good majority of Mexicans just go with the flow. But listen, there's Mexicans out there that are just as American as an American, all right? So they're stressing because they can't work. They're stressing because of this, because they're not comfortable. It is what it is. But it's a little different. But anyways, sorry about that, Ponchita. That you're, living in Texas. I mean, some of the worst experiences I've had in my life, believe it or not, came from Texas. In fact, some people out there, used to think that I used to hate Texas. Like, listen, man, it's not that I hate Texas. I felt, that Texas hated me because every time I went through there, I had a problem. In fact, the last time I went through there was so bad, that they arrested me and they put me in a jail in Childress, Texas. Maybe you know where that is, Ponchita. But anyways, just locked me up and threw away the key, and I was lucky to get out. And when I got out, now that's why I'm here, okay? Now, my whole situation is fixed, okay? I got nothing to worry about. I can definitely return to the USA. I don't know if I want to return to Texas, but I can definitely return. But it's like at this point, it's like, why the hell would I ever want to return, yeah, anywho's, Texas, yeah, anyways. Don't get me started on Texas. But again, I'm a Floridian, and, Florida has always had a rivalry with Texas, it's like a weird rivalry. We're trying to, how do I say, it's like, see who's I don't know, who's the douchier, who's the worst, who's the, whatever, because it's like, Texas will be like, oh, we got the most guns, and then Florida's like, oh yeah, hold my beer. Things like that, so Florida and Texas are always kind of like fighting for this trophy that nobody wants, okay? But yeah, long story short, there's like a rivalry there. And so, I don't know, I think a lot of times, every time I went through Texas and people knew immediately that not only I was from Florida, but I was from Miami, yeah, forget about it, It's like very rarely, did I ever have a good time, in Texas. And Whataburger sucks, okay? I don't know why people love Whataburger. I think it's terrible. In-N-Out is where it's at, all right? It's all about In-N-Out Burger. But anyways, all right, enough of that. No, I'm not trying to bash Texas out here, right? It is what it is. I get it. Hey, shout out to Texas, whatever, for anyone out there that loves Texas, all right? Anyways, not for me. If I ever go back to the U.S., it's Florida all day, every day, all right? So, as crazy as Florida is, all right? So maybe, again, that's where I'm from, all right? I'm a Florida man, all right? So Edwin says, shout out to you, Jose. I live in Arizona and temperatures get to 120 degrees. Yeah. Oh, man, don't get me started, bro. Yeah, I remember one time I was driving through there and it was 125 degrees. And I was like, bro, what the I could not believe it. I thought the dash on my car was malfunctioning. So I checked the weather. It was like 127. I was like, how the... That's why when people complain about 100 degrees out here, 105 degrees, and you're on the beach, I'm like, bro, what the F are you complaining about? There's like millions of people that live, not just in Arizona, but, throughout the whole desert, northern Mexico. I mean, I can go on. And it's like, how do you guys do it? How the hell do you guys do it? You know what I mean? Shout out to you, man. Thank you, Edwin, but shout out to you, for being able to survive that. So, yeah, no, listen, man. Now, listen, I know a lot of people that say, oh, I cannot handle the humid heat out here. I prefer the dry heat. Listen, I lived in dry heat. It's terrible. I hated the dry heat. I much prefer to be a little moist, a little humidity. Now, Florida was extremely humid. I feel like Florida's humid all the time. But out here, the humidity comes and goes. But it is not like Florida, because every once in a while we'll get like deep humidity here, and it's like, okay, there it is. You know, like we're in Florida. I mean, you know, that's like every day. You know, you get punched in the face by the humidity. You know, but yeah, out here I feel like the humidity is, nothing compared to Florida. But it gets hot. But again, if you're from 120 degree weather, man, come on now. You know, this ain't nothing. Like I said, this morning we woke up with a weird cold front. We woke up with 70-degree weather, and people are in sweaters out here in April. All right? So, yeah, I think the only people that like Texas are people from Texas, all right? And again, not everybody. But I think most people don't like Texas, all right? So, I get it. It is what it is, so. It's like, Art H, you must have been traveling across Texas with the wrong license plates. Yeah, not only did I have the wrong license plates, but I also had the wrong license. So I had Washington State plates. Okay, so my plates were from, Washington, Seattle, because that's where I was living, at the time. And my license, they definitely didn't like that, was from Florida, or was it California? I don't know, whatever. Up until that point, I thought I had rights. I thought as an American, I had rights. In fact, this was literally me. Hold on, I got to show it to you because, this is actually filmed at the scene. Hold on a second. I got footage from my dash cam. All right, so, all right, you guys ready for this? Okay, hold on. All right, there it is. Okay, I got footage from my dash cam.
For what? Arresting me for what? I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
So that was me. That's literally what happened to me in Texas, all right? Because for some odd reason, like a dumb American that I was, I thought I had rights. I thought I was, anyways. So yeah, long story short, I found out very quickly I had zero rights, negative rights. And yeah, anyways, so. By the way, shout out to you, Pochita. I see that you left a $10 super chat. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. Muchas gracias. Muchos thank yous very much. Again, going to moving to a new house fund. Thank you. Thank you to the power outage fund. Muchas gracias. What was I saying? Yeah, man. Don't get me started on the whole story. In fact, I gotta tell the full story on. By the way, I will tell the full story at one point on my other channel, Jose Unleashed. I've actually told the story many times in the past on this channel, a long time ago. But I'll go through it one day, soon, for sure. What happened there. But yeah, literally, you hit the nail on the head, man. Shit, you must know the area very well. Art H. Yeah, I was literally leaving Amarillo. That's where I was going through there, I was actually coming from Denver. Forget when oh man, don't get me started. Anyways, fucking text. Anyway. So Childress, yeah, bro. Childress. That's actually where they filmed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So oh, yeah, no, 100% RH. Yeah, I'm American, but my name was Jose. Dude, they hated everything about me, bro. Like I said, I was driving a car, which, by the way, I'm not dumb, okay? I'm from the streets. I know a lot. Okay, so the car that I had basically was like, the white Ford that they drive, okay? It's all legal steagle. I was trying... Oh, again, I know better. So I always drove a car to cause the least amount of attention to myself, okay? But... like you said, man, when I was driving through there, I had the wrong license plates. When they finally talked to me, I was saying the wrong things. Then I gave them the wrong name, Jose Adiaga, what, out there. And then they saw my tag, my Florida, information. Oh, forget about it, bro. It was just like, it's like, I hit the fucking jackpot. I was like, fuck, are you kidding me? 777s on that one. Bing, bing, bing. Oh, shit. You know what I mean? Like, you kidding me? Shit, they still talk about me, to this day. You kidding? Man, don't get me started there. Like I said, we'll talk about it in depth at one point. But yeah, man, no, geez, man, no, yeah, Texas, 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 yes, man. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you know, it was, look, that moment, believe it or not, that was the moment. That was the moment. That experience was the experience that basically made me snap out of it and made me realize that we're living in a fucking fantasy in the USA. I'm sorry, part of my French there. You know, you're living in a complete and utter fantasy that you have no rights, you have no nothing, you got nothing. You're basically a slave to the system. The end. And yeah, man, you know, oh man. But anyways, long story short, you know, I literally don't have any real bad, I don't got any bad memories of that, because if it wasn't for that experience, if it wasn't for that, I would never, ever, ever be in Mexico. I would never have the amazing life that I have right now. So all the time, I constantly, you know, kind of thank, you know, that bad experience, you know, because if it wasn't for that bad experience, I never would have made my way all the way out here. It's as simple as that. So, yes, sir. All right, let me see. Yeah, it's snowing up. Yeah, I know it's snowing up there. It's kind of crazy. It's snowing up there. But yeah, man. Anyways, but yeah, that was the experience. Up until that point, I still thought in my dumbass head, like a lot of Americans still think, that they got rights, that that's never gonna happen to them, yada yada yada, all this other stuff. But you know, the thing is, it's like you know, one day it just happens to you. And it doesn't matter. You know, like I said, for me, I had the trifecta. You know what I mean? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, you know, again, you know, different tag, different license, the name, you know, everything. Okay, are you kidding me? But, you know, while I was arrested, I had to spend 3 days in jail. While I was there, I saw a lot of Marys and Sues and Johns and everybody in between. Okay, and it didn't matter. It just did not matter. And we all know it does not matter. You know, sure, you know, in some areas, you know, maybe the color of your skin or whatever might, you know, leave you with a warning, but not every. You know, most at the end of the day, you got no rights, man. You just got no rights. Simple as that. And it was a very hard pill to swallow, but and a very hard lesson to you know, again, to learn from. But hey, I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I left when I did, because I cannot imagine being in the USA during the last 7 years. Again, going through what's going on right now. Again, by the way, you know, we're going to talk more in depth in a few minutes, okay? Because we're going to go live on my other channel. Please, 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 if you guys are enjoying, you know, the stuff on this channel, you guys enjoy, you know, what I do, you guys want to help me out, you know, you guys want to be a pal, go to my other channel, go subscribe. You know, maybe even, you know, hang out with us and, you know, let's talk, all right? See what's going on. You know, but long story short, I mean, you know, a lot of the things that are going on now, I mean, these are things that I was predicting that were going to happen, but you're in denial thinking, it's never going to happen. Oh, I got my rights. Oh, that's just blah, blah, blah. Until eventually you get caught up in the system, until eventually these things happen to you, and then some people wake up. You know, I think a lot of you guys have woken up and, you know, you guys that's why you're watching channels like this, you know, trying to get out of the USA. But some people have not waken up, man. And I talk to friends and family, and it saddens me, you know, like right now, it's like they see everything that's going on and they're like, yeah, this is the plan. Everything's going according to plan. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. And it's like, okay, all right, you know, good luck with that. You know, and again, I don't know, man. I hope I'm wrong. You know, I hope that, you know, whatever's going on in the USA right now is, you know, something that's going to turn it all around and everything's going to be great and wonderful. But, you know, for anyone out there that's old enough to know already, it doesn't matter who's in power. It doesn't matter what's going on. It's just a downward spiral. And for me, you know, when I first moved to Mexico and I first started making content on this channel, a lot of it was, you know, talking about that. You know, it was just talking about the fact that, like, you know, what was going to happen in the USA. And, you know, I'm glad that I had moved to Mexico and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, those videos were not really tracking well. And I was making videos about also living in Mexico. So I just kept doing that. And then COVID happened. And then all these other things started happening. And then basically all those things that I talked about came true and then some. And again, it wasn't just me. I mean, come on. There was plenty of people talking about these things. But here we are now. You know, we're right in the middle of everything that's going on, and people are still like in pure denial. You know, like just clapping at everything, or upset at everything. You know what I mean? But not really even understanding what's really going on. Which at this point, how the hell do you not know what's going on? How the hell do people still not know what's going on? But hey, it is what it is. Again, I don't want to, go too deep on this channel talking about my personal thoughts. That's why I leave it for the other channel, because I know how people get butt hurt out there, when I speak too much truth. All right. And again, not just about this topic, about whatever topic. Okay. Because even on my channel, again, let's just go to my channel real quick here. This channel, for anyone out there that's interested, okay, and you guys want more information on living in Mexico or moving to Mexico, check it out. But I mean, even, you know how much hate I get on some of my videos? I mean, if you don't, go check out the comments. I try, to leave all the comments on there. Again, sometimes the comments are so bad and sometimes they're so negative that YouTube deletes them themselves. It's kind of crazy. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I don't, delete a comment here or there, but like maybe 0.5%, 1%, somebody going on there leaving a very unhinged comment with a lot of bad words, not family friendly stuff is like, all right, yeah, okay, But other than that, I try to leave everybody's comments on there, and man, it is incredible. It is incredible to see how much hate, some people spew, how much, hate on just, spreading information. I'm out here just giving you guys information, and like, people get so upset. Man, it's just incredible. It really is. It's we're living in a very weird world, I'll tell you that. And at least living in Mexico, man, out here it is a lot, easier to swallow this pill. The pill of, hey, what's going on in the world right now? All this insanity that's going on in the world right now. It's just so much easier, to just watch the movie. Out here in Mexico, I get to relax. I get to watch the movie. Again, on Thursday, I lost power. And basically, the world went to hell, right? Again, we know everything that's been going on right now with the tariffs and the stock market and all this other crap, right? And it's like, I couldn't even care. As much as I care about these things, because, whatever, it's interesting to me. To me, it was just like, oh, man, whatever, man. In fact, it was more like I felt like, man, it's almost like I felt like it was a sign from the heavens, sign from the universe, from God, from whatever, it's like, hey, man, like, we know how much you find this entertaining and how much you get enthralled by this. So what we're going to do is that we're just going to take away the power. We're going to take away the internet. We're going to take away your access, to this insanity, so that you can just, enjoy your time off. Just, again, the world gave me some time off and I took it. And that's it. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just like I feel so blessed to be able to live out here and to have my life out here, and so blessed to be able to have, what do I do for a living? People ask me all the time, what do I do for a living? This is what I do for a living. Look, for a lot of people that do YouTube, it's not enough money. Does not pay that much money. It pays very little money. I'm a struggling artist, all right? Whatever. I do not get paid money. That much money. Now, a lot of people have a job. That's why a lot of people cannot dedicate fully to making videos and content for YouTube all the time, because it doesn't make enough money. And this is from someone living in Mexico, where my expenses are around $1,500. Why are those my expenses? Because that's how much I make. I make around $1,000, maybe $1,500 a month, if I'm lucky. So those are my expenses. That's my expenses. That's why I can confidently say it's enough to live out here. I have to make it enough. All right. That's with everything included. Okay. No matter what the situation. Anyway, so with that said, so I make it happen out here, because it's, again, all I really want to do is live my life in peace and quiet. I want to make my stupid videos, and I get to live off of that here. I cannot live off of this in the USA. In fact, a lot of Americans or Canadians have moved to Mexico, and they start their YouTube channel and they start doing all this stuff as well. They don't, they're trying to, how do I say this? If they're thinking that they can supplement their income with only this, man, they find out very quickly that that's not the case at all, by any stretch of the imagination. All right. Hold on a second, because it's like it's windy and the door keeps opening and closing. But yeah, it's not. It's not, what people think at all. It's again, you got to be kind of cuckoo in the head, to just do this, for basically the bare minimum. And so, but why do I do this? Because I want to do this. And again, I'm so lucky that my life is, making videos. and helping people out by making videos and showing them, what my life is like out here and whatever, the things that I do. I don't even question it anymore. Sometimes I used to think about it more like, oh my God, what do you, the existential crises of like, hey, what do you do for a living? What do you do? Whatever. But it's like, I don't even question it no more. You know what I mean? Are you kidding me? It's like, I'm just happy and proud that I get to do this. And again, knock on wood, I get to do it for another 10 years. Yeah, because it's been almost 10 years I've been on YouTube. But even if I don't, then it's okay. I'll go make some burgers or whatever. That's it. I'll fall back on what my original career choice was. So... But at the end of the day, it's that's just the reality of it, of like what it is to like make videos and do all this stuff. And so for me, it's like I feel blessed because it's like I get to be out here, I get to live my dream, I get to have an amazing beautiful wife as my partner. I get to have an amazing life out here where I really get to enjoy and smell the roses. And sometimes if I'm working too hard, the universe will just turn off the power and say, hey, take a break, bro, relax. Don't worry about it. So, I mean, where, the USA is just a constant stress, of you need to make more money. You need to make more money. You need to do all this stuff. So, again, yeah, going back to the point of like, other people that come out here and try to do YouTube or whatever, that's why they have to sell stuff. That's why they have to even have a job on the side. That's why they can't, do as much or do what I do per se, because it's like they have and then on top of that, they have a more expensive lifestyle. So they got to supplement that lifestyle some way, somehow. All that costs money. And so where are they getting that money from? Well, most likely they work. Sometimes they get a government check. But usually if you're getting a government check, you're already retired, right? I don't know. But at the end of the day, one shape, form, or another, a lot of people come out here and they have their fancy lifestyle, and that costs money. And the YouTube is not enough. And that's it, but at least for me, it's more than enough. It's plenty. In fact, I'm happy now that, now we're, starting to, as the channel's growing, and there's more people watching my videos. Well, guess what? I get a little bit more ad revenue, and so now I get a little bit more, money, which is why I've been able to recently, in the last couple months, I've been able to upgrade my gear. I got like a new microphone. We've been able to get the electric bicycles. By the way, I got the electric bike. Okay, so it's coming up soon. I filmed one more video on Christian's bike, so that's coming up. But I already got the new bike as well, so we're ready to rock and roll. And now with the emergency, of the house with the power, I can literally, if I have to move, I can move. I'm not stressing, with the money over that, and so yeah. But why? Why can I do that? Well, because I've lived very frugally for a very long time. And, some months I would only make like $700. That's why I laugh so hard when people, tell me, it's like, oh my God, Jose, what are you talking about? You need like $2,000, $3,000, $3,500 to live out here. I'm like, bro, really? What are you doing? What are you spending your money on? Geez, I would love to, to experience your lifestyle. You must be balling. But, yeah, anyways, it is what it is. So, but yeah, for me, look, Edwin said it right there. Definitely the smell of freedom from in Arizona. No, I don't know. I guess you said something else earlier. I didn't hear someone. But anyways, yeah. Speaking of freedom, that's to me the price of admission. So for me, life out here, can get a little rough sometimes. I'm not gonna, we're not gonna pretend like and like it doesn't. Life can get rough out here sometimes. But at the end of the day, are you kidding me? If that is the price of admission for freedom. For real freedom, the freedom that I've always wanted my whole life, the freedom that a lot of Americans have always wanted their whole life. Hey, listen, man, I'll pay it. You kidding me? It's small. It is cheap, okay? It is a small price to pay, my brother. You know what I mean? Are you kidding me? For real freedom? Yeah, anyways. But again, for a lot of people in the audience, they've realized very, very quickly they cannot handle, like, again, dealing without power for a few days. And they quickly reminded that, yeah, they will trade that freedom for comfort all day, every day. And for me, it's like, no way, man. No way. For me, I feel more uncomfortable, okay, not being able to decide how I want to live my life and how I want to do things than, not having air conditioner. Come on, give me a break. So, but again, I know I'm in the minority. Maybe not. Maybe some people out there, view things like me, but for the most part, I know, most of us are in the minority. Daniel says, hi, Jose, love the job you are doing. and with Mexico, recently I opened Colibri Hummingbird Buffet Restaurant in Centro Morelia, Michoacan. It's amazing how many people are moving to Mexico from the U.S. Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations on your restaurant. All right. Cool. What kind of food? Is it Mexican food? That's cool. I've heard amazing, beautiful things at Morelia, Michoacan. I would really love to visit out there. I was close by. We were in Jalisco. We were and again, we're right. What I'm showing you right now is Guadalajara. So yeah, hopefully one day we'll get to make it out there. That's awesome. Chief says financial freedom, and he said sorry. Chief says I watch Financial Freedom. It helps to be frugal. I don't know if Financial Freedom is a channel or what, but yes, that's also part of freedom, financial freedom. Because out here again, I get to live off of a lot less money. Therefore, it gives me more financial freedom because I don't have to work harder, do things I don't want to do, in order to make the money necessary to pay my bills. So that financial freedom. Also, financial freedom comes, right now as we're making more money and we'll make more money. Well, it provides comfort. All right. But again, at the end of the day, you got to learn how to, certain, basics of life. Because I remember I lived very, very poor. And the first time I really, really made money, man, I was like those, NFL, NBA stars that grew up with in a shack. And then all of a sudden they made like a gazillion dollars and they spend all that money. They lose all that money overnight because they don't know. Something happened to me like that very similarly, all right? So I get it. And I've learned, I've learned the hard way. But yeah, it is what it is. So do I pat McDonald's restrooms in Mexico? What do you mean pat? I don't even know what the hell that means. But yeah, they have bathrooms in Mexico and McDonald's. Anyways. Oh, that's awesome. Was it? I'm reading some comments, sorry. Anyways, but shout out to all of you guys out there. But let me see any comments or anything else. Thank you guys. Much appreciated for all the comments. All right. Pay. Oh, do you pay for restrooms in McDonald's? I don't think so. No, I think they're free. I don't know. I don't think I've only been into a few McDonald's out here. I think they're free. I'm pretty sure they're free. I think it just depends on where the McDonald's is, just like in the USA, But if you pay, it's like 5 pesos or whatever. Well, yeah. Not quite sure though. But anyways, oh wow, okay, I just saw the time. Okay, all right, guys, look, I gotta get ready for my other show, guys. All right, so if you guys enjoyed today's live stream and you guys want to hang out for more hilarity, you guys want to hang out for more fun and entertainment, come join me on my other channel. All right, I'm gonna put a link in the chat and in the description so you guys can go to my other channel and my other my other live stream. We're gonna go live very soon. All right, so about 30 minutes or so, we're gonna go live over there, and we're gonna talk about, well, again, you guys can see what we're gonna talk about. It's gonna be hopefully some fun, and hope to see you there. But I think that's it, guys. We're gonna get out of here. I gotta take a quick break and get ready for the next show. So, all right, guys, again, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Please, you guys already know, if you want, more information on moving to Mexico, free information on moving to Mexico, before you pay anybody or pay anything or buy anything, visit my YouTube page, visit my website. Look, the link is right there, joseartiaga.com. It's my name.com. Pretty easy. All right, like Spaceballs. The movie. You remember that? Anyways, so here we got Jose Artiaga, the website. By the way, Spaceballs, one of my favorite movies all time. Anyways, all right. So yeah, go to my website, and on my website, you can find all kinds of free information. Okay? Free information, all right? Before you pay for anything, because again, you might be able to get all your information for free and then realize, oh, well, thank God for Jose, and his charity work out there, helping bums like us, because we don't have to now buy XYZ or pay for XYZ or do this or that. Or, again, the real reason reason I provide all this free information is because when you're out here and, when you're moving out here, you're doing your things out here, you're hiring somebody, like a facilitator, whatever it is, Well, guess what? Now you can double check, cross check. You can vet the people to know if they're doing the right job or not. If they're getting charging you more than they need to be charging you. You know, if you're getting the gringo price, if they're providing the real information or not. Because a lot of people, again, you got to remember, there's a lot of people out there that want to help you out, and you don't know what they're telling you, because you're not from this country. You don't know this, you don't know that. So again, this is why I just give you all the information for free, so that way when you are in another part of Mexico and you hire somebody for whatever, well, it's like, hey, wait a minute, I heard on Jose's channel, hey, Jose's lawyer, Jose, said blah blah blah, blah blah, why is this like this, why is this like that, hey, how come I don't have a contract, hey, how come this isn't like this, hey, how come whatever, why are you charging me for this, I heard from Jose that it's only supposed to be this amount of money, hey, why are you blah 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 blah, anyways. So this is why I do the videos, okay? So that way you got more information on everything. I mean, and I'm really trying to help you guys out, because again, if you know my story, for some of you guys that don't know my story, I came out here with nothing. Just $1,500 left to my name, and I made it happen. And it was very difficult. There was no information, no nothing. And throughout my years, I've been gathering, tons of information on how to figure it out, how to make it out here. And, I made videos about it. All right. So, everything about, getting a job, 20 of the most asked questions, everything. Again, I got a whole list right here on my website. Look, all the way at the top. Look, digital nomad jobs. So it's like, there's no excuse. If you really want to make it happen, you can make it happen. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not going to be easy. But the question you need to ask yourself is, what is going to be more difficult? Staying in the USA or Canada or wherever you're at in your whatever situation you're at, or figuring out a way out, starting over, and building something new. And for a lot of people, it's very obvious. For me, it was very obvious. It was like, oh man, no way, Jose. It's going to be a lot easier to start from the bottom and make it all the way here. Again, just like Drake says, right? Starting at the bottom, now we're here. So it's a lot for a lot of people, no problem. But for some people, again, it's a lot more difficult. And so this is why I try to, provide as many resources as possible to make the transition, assuming you choose to do it, as easy as possible. And that's it. And again, I'm not here to say that I got all the right information or I'm the only guy that knows anything. No. In fact, I encourage you guys to do your own research, vet everybody, everything. In fact, I like to bring my homework. I like to cite my sources and bring information, with everything I say. Even when I'm talking about residency, I got a lot of people hating on me. I got a lot of other YouTube channels saying that I'm, doing horrible, illegal stuff or wrong things. Listen, I'm not, okay? I not only do I have a lawyer backing me up, but I had all the information, and all from the government website, from the Mexican Constitution, the Mexican immigration law, and I can go on and on. So, if I'm wrong, prove me wrong. In fact, I would love for someone to challenge me and prove me wrong on the residency and other things. But anyways, I guess I'm just that kind of guy. What do I know, right? I'm just one of those dudes. But anyways, all right, guys, enough. All right, I got to go. Me, I make everything longer than it needs to be. That's what she said. All right. Whoa. All right.
Bruh.
All right, guys. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys in about 30 minutes on the other channel. Peace out. Love you guys. And I'll see you guys here on Thursday. Remember, we're still going to do a live stream Thursday. So I'll see you guys in 2 days. And I'll see you guys on Sunday. And I'll see you guys on the other channel. And I'll see you guys in your dreams or your nightmares, depending on who you are.